Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we have a treat from Glashutte and Moritz Grossmann, a brand that builds about 500 watches or fewer per year. This is the Atum in rose gold, a simple timepiece, classically inspired. It is a full-sized modern men's dress watch, and as you can see on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference. The 41mm case wears quite easily. Now, it's not a thick watch, although it has a little bit of a square-edged profile. It's only 11.5 millimeters thick, which means it is considerably thinner, almost a millimeter thinner, than a Rolex Daytona, so let that be your dimensional reference. The timepiece is broad across the wrist, but not excessively so, at 50.9 millimeters, so I can recommend for a wrist, in all honesty, as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. The spacing between the lugs is 20 millimeters, and you will find a world of options in that universal size if you want to accessorize. That said, the factory strap is an impressive piece. First of all, it's relatively slim in profile like the watch itself, and it has a wonderful rusticated, semi-aged aesthetic about its large rectangular scale alligator leather components. On the top you can see there is a monotone stitch and a folded edge, and I must say that semi-rusticated, semi-aged, distressed look complements the rose gold beautifully. A conventional calfskin on the underside, you can see that it's wonderfully hitched to a high-grade deployant clasp that features both a double deployant action and, if you look, subtle refinements. First, entirely finished. There are no rough burrs or milling marks here, but also the ceramic pin snaps that are spring-loaded and designed to ensure long-wearing durability and maintenance of tolerances speak to a long-anticipated service life. Now, you can see this is a custom piece for Moritz Grossmann with twin-trigger release, so not only is it a double deployant providing insurance against droppage at bedside, but it also features the twin-trigger release to ensure that you must positively disengage the mechanism in order to release. Jump into the case. It is exquisitely crafted, rose gold, all of high polish. It has a little bit of a vintage appearance, almost as though a little bit of pocket watch DNA were spliced into the design, and that's probably not far off the mark. There is nuance here. As you can see, the expanding bevel that flows from the tips of the lugs into the mid-case. There is also a concave profile, as you'll note, when you view the lugs from an isometric angle, and it has a wonderful dished appearance in person with a sharp cleft between caseband and lug, speaking to the attention to detail and the quality of the hand finishing of the case. Now, when you look at the crown side, things are a little bit different. First, there's a thoughtful kerf underneath the crown, allowing you to dig in your nail and more easily manipulate the crown, but you don't really need to do much manipulation of the crown once you pull it out to its spring-loaded stop and put it into setting mode, and I have already taken the liberty of doing this. You set the hands, and for example, we'll set 4 o'clock. What sets this watch apart is that all of the setting is done with the crown flush to the case. After you pull it out, it snaps back, you're in setting mode. This means that you don't have to worry about play in the system. Once you have set the watch perfectly, oftentimes with a conventional timepiece, you'll replace the crown, you'll budge the minute hand, and you'll have to start over. Here, you simply press the spring release, and the watch returns to its winding mode. Just like that, I have returned the watch to its winding mode. I can energize it. It's a manual wind timepiece, and the crown stayed stationary throughout. The dial is a solid sterling silver blank, and as you can see, it's been galvanized a lovely soft opaline silver with the Moritz Grossmann logo up at 12 o'clock. The hands are exquisitely annealed to a lovely violet bronze, and this is a firing technique that creates a surfacing, a color, and a tone that varies not just from unit to unit, but even across the surface of the hands themselves. You'll also note that there is a subtle rolling to create an angled tip to the minute hand. This is done with a micrometric rolling pin, and it is done manually. You'll also note that at center the hands are finished immaculately with black polish, and there is a sunken sub-register with a mini railroad track seconds at 6 o'clock. Made in Germany, and beautifully so. You can see that all of the indices are applique and polished rose gold. The timepiece featuring an exquisite combination of gold and silver tones on its dial, and remarkably on its caseback. Now, this is the manufacturer caliber 100.1. What sets it apart? Well, a few things set it apart. First, it is all in-house, and by that I mean they're doing everything right down to constructing their own balance, and they are firing their own screws. Let's start with the basics, the style. You have a black polished crown wheel, you have a triple spiral snelling on the ratchet wheel, a lovely nostalgic pocket watch inspired black polished click, and then you have jewels set in chaton, and not just any jewels. You can see all of the jewels on this movement, including the palette stones, are clear clear sapphire, giving a lovely pale appearance that's distinctive of the brand. The screws themselves are fired to create the same violet hue as Moritz Grossmann's handcrafted and hand-fired minute and hour hands. You actually have to be a bit more deft with your timing to create this violet tone, as if you simply fire screws and continue to blast them with heat, they'll turn blue, which is conventional. The violet hue, which has undertones of purple and bronze and even red, that requires less time over the heating source. Now, the jewels set in chaton are a nod to the pocket watch era, when oftentimes, for ease of maintenance and because machining was not as precise at the time, jewels would first be set in precision chaton and then screwed into the bridges for a final fixing. You'll also note that this is very much like a pocket watch movement, as we have our crown wheel, ratchet wheel, center, third, and fourth wheel, and then the escape wheel with the true center wheel architecture. We also have a traditional pocket watch beat rate of 18,000 vibrations per hour, and that giant 14.2 millimeter balance crafted in-house is also a modern piece, as it is a free-sprung architecture with variable inertia masses recessed into the flank of the rim itself to create maximum polar moment, but also to create an aerodynamic profile that reduces the parasitic drag of air inside the watch. There is a handmade Breguet overcoil hairspring that allows the watch to beat with an excellent isochronism in any position, and the hairspring will breathe concentrically in any orientation. Let's talk quickly about the power reserve, 42 hours, and all of that by means of a unusual pillar construction. This is something that's germane to ancient marine chronometers and pocket watches. In the modern era, we've seen it, for example, on the Fernand Berthoud chronomètre that won the GPHG Aguidor. Well, the same style of construction, the double layers of bridges and plates present here. A three-quarter style bridge in German silver, the plates and bridges both German silver. It's the architecture as well as the material that harks back to the pocket watch era. What is known as German silver is in fact a nickel copper zinc alloy, giving it that golden hue. Now, everything that appears to be engraved into the bridges is in fact freehand engraved, in fact. So all of the engraving with a lovely serif font done manually, so no two watches are exactly alike, and that goes for the primary freehand engraved components, as you could see, including structures adjacent to and including the half bridge for the balance. I should mention that there's also a proprietary micrometric regulator under a black polished index that's used for fine-tuning and adjustment. This watch is a tour de force, beautifully made, beautifully finished, right down to the exceptionally broad Glashutte stripes and the mirrored anglage beveling on the edge of every bridge. From a brand that makes comparatively few watches, a modern brand but in the best horological traditions of Saxony, this is Moritz Grossmann, and this is the Atum Rose Gold.